Kask. And I've been playing board games since I was 3 or 4 at home, of course. Found my first war game, an Avalon Hill game, in 6th grade. And I was the first employee of TSR Hobbies, who were the original creators of Dungeons and Dragons. So I wrote some of that and edited a bunch of it. And I've been active in the industry ever since. I started several magazines, all of which are now dead, because they were print media is basically dead, especially in this industry. And I've been in the hobby. I go to a couple of, well, until last year, I was going to 5 or 6 conventions around the eastern half of the United States as a guest. And I don't do that anymore. I'm just going to a couple because I don't like flying. Your game design class. All right, I'm going to give you some saws, old saws, and you've probably heard them before, but I think they're important to hear. I only carry a briefcase so I can have a cold drink. And it's just water. First off, identify your market. Who's this game designed for? What platform? Is it a tabletop board game? Is it a video game? Is it a phone game? Because they all have a different dynamic and they all appeal to different people. If we're talking board games, we'll say, for instance, then is it a family game? Is it for older kids? Shooting for a board game at the tweeners is wasting your bullets. Because the tweeners as a whole, if they haven't already fixated on something by the time they hit 13, 14, then you probably don't have a gamer. I'm a gamer because my mom was a gamer. We had every game in our house growing up, from Candyland to Parcheesi to Chinese checkers to the home version of Jeopardy, to the home version of Concentration. And so I caught her gene. So I love it. I'll play anything. Know your market. Who is this game going to attract? Who's going to play it? And then play test the hell out of it. There's no such thing as too much play testing. Play test, play test, play test. Get different ages. Get both sexes. Play test, because you'll miss a bunch. When I write a role-playing adventure, I have other people look at it before I publish it. I have other people give me feedback on it. And because I don't believe that I'm so great that I can just clack it out and sell it. No, I want to know that it's a good game. I want to know that it'll work. So I give it to people also publish these types of games. And I also play test it. I play test it at conventions. Go to a convention, local, whatever one you can go to, any game convention, go there and play test it. You can always find people interested in trying out a new game because we're curious by nature. Gamers are curious by nature. Play test it. I'm going to give you a couple of weird examples. Kickstarter, and I'll go back to Kickstarter itself in a minute. Kickstarter is a great way to market a game. You don't have to go to an established game publisher, of which there are damn few of any size other than Hasbro. All the ones I'm familiar with in my part of the business, in role-playing and board gaming and that I'm involved in, none of them are what you call a big fat company, and none of their CEOs are making big bucks. The big joke in gaming has always been, you want to make $1 million in gaming, start with 2. Because it's not a get rich quick. There have been lightning strikes. Man up here in Reading. Yeah, that way. Reading created Uno. But he didn't create Uno. That card game with 2 decks of regular playing cards, I was playing over in Vietnam 2.5 years before he ever came out with it. He took a card game using playing cards, changed the suits to colors, and basically copied the rest of the rules. And he made a gazillion bucks. He is the exception. He is the exception. And he was smart enough to see a game that had potential. So he suits in the colors, got rid of the face cards, made them into other things. And basically that game is the same as what I played in Nom. But nah, with playing cards. Facebook, or rather, Kickstarter. Facebook's a great place to advertise, by the way, because there's just tons and tons and tons of gaming pages. Kickstarter. A couple of people got together, had this idea for a card game involving kittens. They were going to blow them up. It was wildly successful. Over 250,000 people pledged to it. They raised almost $9 million. And the game is now sitting in closets, in drawers, on shelves, because it had no replayability. Your game has to have replayability. Now, if you're looking at a digital platform, you make your money on digital platforms by how many people click into play and the ads you can sell based on those clicks. But if you can't, if it's no good to replay it, you get them one time down the rat hole and that's it, no more money. It's got to have replayability. A board game has to have replayability. The classic Monopoly. We've all played it probably dozens of times, forced to when we were younger, or by choice, or when we're making little kids in our family play it, because I had to. Monopoly has replayability, infinite replayability, because you never roll the same dice twice. However, in one of my magazines years ago, we broke down Monopoly and gave it a percentage chances on landing on any given square, and it kind of ruined the game, in my opinion. But I published it because at the time I thought it was neat. Replayability. If it doesn't have that, you're not going to get word of mouth for other people to buy your game. If they're not happy with it, they won't tell other people about it. Exploding Kittens is sitting. They even tried doing expansion sets. On a successful game, those are great. That's extra cash. They didn't do those worth a damn, and they really didn't fix the problem. They made a lot of money. They probably made $8 million divided by however many there were. Kickstarter itself is a great place to take your design. Once you've tested it, and you know it'll play again, go to Kickstarter. I got involved with a Kickstarter project just a couple of months ago, just for Christmas. They came to me and wanted me to do something that I thought was novel and unique, and I said, great. And he was in the process of kickstarting it badly, and he pulled it before it was over. And they talked to a couple of guys that I happen to know that are very good at kickstarting and can predict, usually within $1,000, how well anybody else is going to do in the game business, because they know it that well. They helped him restructure it. It funded, boom, boom, boom. Why was I involved? It was a unique idea because it's a game, it's a board game, lots of replayability. Number one, lots of replayability because it has card decks. Card decks always mix things up. This is aimed at people with reading disabilities because every card deck has a QR code on it. Click, and you'll hear my voice read the card to them. National Association of the Blind is they're gaga about the thing. NPR's coming to do a thing on it. Now I'm just a tiny person at the end that did that, but the concept so intrigued me. I said, "Whoa, here's a niche." Sight problem people. It's bad terminology. I know people with sight issues, whether they're blind, have reading issues, whatever. They don't have to read, and we're doing something nobody else ever did. We haven't announced this yet. We're putting out a set of polyhedral Braille dice. All the funny dice in Braille. All right, that's a niche that nobody ever went after before, and I think we'll do very well with. Because if it gets on NPR, we're going to China, and we're going to have a whole lot more of them made. And that's the other thing, China. If you have something, especially a board game, that's going to be making a lot of copies, you're going to have to deal with China. Because Chinese printers do a better job, unfortunately, and a cheaper job than anything you'll find in North America. So brush up on your international diplomacy, brush up on your Chinese, and prepare to deal with Chinese printers. And to do that, you go to somebody else who's done it and say, hey, who's good, who's bad? Because like anything else, people will learn through experience who's good and who's bad. Replayability, know your market, test. Knowing your market means you know how you're going to try and sell it. If you sell it to Hasbro, you get a flat sum, and probably that's it. Goodbye, and they'll kindly, politely show you the door and give you a donut on the way out. Get a royalty. If your game hits big, even if it's 10 cents an issue copy, it sells 10 million copies, you got a fat royalty check. If you have the chance, don't sell it outright. It's your IP. Now, that doesn't necessarily apply the same way in electronic media, phone games, and computer games. Those are a little harder to negotiate, that type of thing. Generally, you end up selling your soul to that company. So make sure you get a good price. Especially if you're doing an electronic game, a digital game. Make sure you get a good price, because that's the last you'll see. That's just the way it works. I joked on Facebook before I came down here today that I'm here to crush all your dreams and hopes. All right. It's a tough business. For everyone that makes it, 100 didn't. At least 100 didn't. But I'm not trying to crush your dream. If you've got an idea, run with it. Show it to other people. In playtesting, you might find, oh, hell, I ought to do this whole section a different way. And make your game better. That's what playtesting's for. It's the playtesters are trying to break it, it being your system, the mechanism of the game, and you're watching them learning how to make it unbreakable. Back in the day, late 70s, early 80s, I know most of you weren't alive, every board game ended up within a rata sheet. And most of the role players did too. And I got questioned once in public forum why we felt it necessary. I said, well, most errata sheets are just, okay, we forgot this word between this word and that word on line 9. You know, a lot of that was correcting typos. But often there were rules, definitions. And my answer was that, you know, you cannot make a set of rules foolproof because fools are too ingenious. They will find ways to put things together that no one in their right mind, in your mind, would possibly have thought of that. And somebody will. Fools are too ingenious. They will try to do stuff. Now, I don't know how many of you are role players or were role playing. All right, you'll get somebody in there. Why can't I? And this way, no, because rules say you can. And that's when you have to have rules that are tight. So your rules have to be tight. And if you think people are going to try and misuse some facet of your game, the last line in the explanation is what they can't do with it. Don't let them, because they'll go down every rabbit hole looking for a way around. That's human nature. It's human nature. They're going to try to find a way around. They're going to want to win. And most people, unless they know it's wrong, evil, will do what it takes to win. You don't sit down to the table to lose. Everybody, you sit down to have fun first. But everybody's there to try to win or succeed or whatever measure you're going for in your design. That's why they sit down to do it. Besides the camaraderie, the family, and the friendship and the warmth of that, they're focused on that table. So you got to have a good product to focus on. And I don't really want to crush your dreams. I really want you to know that. It's tough out there. If you go submitting to other companies, whether you're submitting role-playing type rules or games or board game type product and submit it to other companies, expect to be rejected. Don't go into a funk about it. It's tough. You can't find anybody to go. Go to a couple of conventions in your area. Take the time to go to a couple of them. Get a lot of players. Get them talking about it on Facebook. Man, I wish we had, well, yes and no, I wish we had Facebook back then. It would have been worse with all the trolls, but we'd have been able to disseminate stuff so much easier. If you believe that it's doable, keep doing it. Know your market. If you're going to market yourself, then be adept at social media. This game, it's called D20 Delving, was solely social media. When I got on board, I touted it a little bit and helped him over the edge and finish the Kickstarter and, you know, fund it. That's today's best market. Social media slash Kickstarting. Why do you want to sell it to Hasbro and let them make all the money if you have a good product and you can sell it yourself? We've already sold out on D20 Delving all the copies that we printed with the Kickstarter money. We're taking about 80 of them up to Gary Con later this month. That's all we have. We expect to sell it bang, bang, bang. We expect NPR, well, I think he's talking to NPR next week. And the Association of the Blind is talking about endorsing us. When that happens, we'll be picking up the figurative phone to China, ordering 3,000, 4,000 copies, whatever. And now we're making money. Because we've done all the hard work. We did all the layout, we did all the writing, we coordinated all the art, recorded all the voices, whatever. And from then on, everything's gravy. And gravy's a good thing in this instance. That's really only directives in a general sense that I can give you. I'm glad to take questions. I do a podcast every week that where it's just based on the comments from the previous one. That's all I do. I don't preach, well, occasionally, but generally I don't preach. It's called The Curmudgeon in the Cellar. All right, on YouTube, or you can look me up as Kaskoid, all small, Kaskoid. Okay, and that's all I talk about is games and gaming, and I answer questions. And I'm delighted to do it. I give advice sometimes, and I'm flattered that they ask, and don't bother to follow up and see how much of it they follow, because that might hurt my feelings. But I'll take any questions you got about any aspect of what you're doing in this class, what you want to try to do with it commercially. I'm glad to answer questions, or if you just want to talk gaming, I'm okay with that too. Yes.
I'm curious to hear your ideas of the current direction of Dungeons and Dragons and the one D&D.
That pompous thing.
Yeah.
One D&D. Sounds like a Monty Python movie, doesn't it? I don't have a real high opinion.
Yeah.
I don't like, and it's just my opinion, but I'll state why. I don't like 5e. 5e takes half the intelligence out of the game. In my world, where I was back with the original and first edition, you had to ask questions, you had to gather information. Nothing was handed to you on a plate, and somebody didn't tell you, roll a die. Oh, what do you see? Perception. None of that crap. You had to think. And they've taken the thinking out, especially in 5e. I have no idea what they're going to do with the next one, especially after the shitstorm that just happened over the OGL, the Outside Gamers License, wherein if you agreed to abide by it, you're recognizing that they own certain terms and they think they own, and you're not allowed to use certain monsters that have already been created. It's a very small list, right? Stuff I created is okay. None of it made the bad boy list. So there's a big stink last couple, 3 weeks. They were gonna revise the OGL and basically cut the floor out from every third-party company that was selling products that supported various editions of Dungeons and Dragons, which is the elephant in the room when you're talking role play. It's bigger than all the other elephants put together. They really got their fingers burned. Huge stink. Hasbro backed up, and they realized, okay. Now I don't for a minute doubt that they won't try it again in 6 months under a different name. They want to control everything. Whereas third-party publishers, which you can become, have kept the hobby alive and supported it well. And third-party publishers is not a stigma. I have a couple of friends that are third-party. I'm a third-party publisher. I publish adventures and stuff that can be used with a number of different games. If you play D&D, you'll recognize everything there, but they can be played with Pathfinder and some of the other role-playing games. Swords and Wizardry is they're a good clone. They're called a clone. There's a lot of clones in the role-playing game where guys have come within the OGL and just done a better set of, in their opinion, they've done a better set of rules. Now, whether their opinions hold any, it's following me. Oh, yes. Whether or not it's any good will be seen by Stalin and his other people that their product is wonderful. Let Hasbro go. Hasbro should have learned something. They certainly got the pee-pee whacked with this OGL crap. So we'll see what that does. There's a couple of people in the design team at Wizards of the Coast that are decent guys. But hey, somebody else signs their check. And that's something else. If you go to work for a game company, you're no longer your own man or woman because somebody else signs your check. Now, if it's a big enough check, go. Any other? All right, next question. Yes.
So you clearly have played a lot of games in your life.
Yes, ma'am.
What has been your favorite game and why?
My favorite game? Oh, Lord. One of my current favorites, and they evolve over the years. Right now, one of my current favorites, one that I have 4 buddies, a little younger than me, and we get together twice a month, play board games. One of our favorites is a game called Feudality. It's a Tom Wom game, and if you know anything about Tom Wom, you know it's going to be tongue-in-cheek and fun to play. And it is, and it has infinite replayability. It will never be the same. I don't care if you play 10,000 games, you'll never find 2 that work out the same. We love it for that reason. And then there's one we play a lot that's really simple. It's called Scoville. Units, you measure heat and peppers, and you grow peppers. That's what the game is, growing peppers, crossbreeding peppers, producing better peppers, and you fill out chili recipes and gain points, or you sell some of your peppers and you gain points, and that's how the game is played. We play that a lot. We like it because with 4 or 5, we can throw each other by blocking them and not letting them walk. Just pin a guy in and his whole turn just got wasted because he can't go anywhere. So he didn't make any peppers. So my group likes games for a different reason, perhaps than some. We used to play a lot of warm-up games, waiting for the last guy to show up. Naval War, it's an old Avalon Hill card game. Nuclear War, it's even older card game. Classic, yes. Nuclear destruction. You get the wrong space on the spinner, you crack the earth and the whole world dies. It was put out as a protest back in the 60s. The nuclear war race that was going on, trying in game fashion to show everybody how dangerous it was. Well, we played it. I think I'm going to like D20 Delving a lot. I haven't been able to play it yet, obviously, but I know I know the game and I know the rules and everything, and I'm just anxious to play it for real. I have several that you may have never ever heard of. Because I haven't seen anything in the last few years that piqued my interest. And no sense, God knows I got enough games in my basement. Oh my Lord, the only thing I got more of is dice. Yeah, I've got a whole wall of games, a whole wall of bookcases full of games. So I haven't bought any recently, unless it was, a friend's Kickstarter or something like that. I tend to go for, well, another great old game that you can still find is called Illuminati.
Oh, yeah.
Great card game, full of conspiracy theories and all kinds of stuff. And it's all about world domination and shivving the other players at the table so that you succeed. All right, now, yeah, you might notice I have a tendency to bloodthirsty games, but I like to call them as I see them. War games. War games made me a pacifist, oddly enough. While I was in the Navy, I became a pacifist playing a game called 1914, in which I realized I was wiping out entire cores of human beings. In this game, a core ended up a company. Well, where'd those other 40,000 people go? That kind of made me into a pacifist. And that, and the fact that we're continually frustrated trying to fight the war with our hands tied by Washington. But there was a game that really, really made me start thinking. A game, and then there's games out there. There's a game called Flight. It's all about birds and evolving birds so that they have all the good traits at the end of the game. When they're, there's there's 3 or 4 that are not topics that you would normally associate with a game, but they're great fun to play. That's not new. There were games back in the late 70s where the whole thing was about evolving your creature into something more horrible and terrible. It's a sci-fi type game. And so that idea isn't new in and of itself. Any next question? Yes.
What was the hardest balancing task you came across?
Balancing in what?
Just anything, like balancing.
Well, all right. Well, I'll take role playing because that's what I know the best. I must have bored him already. Yeah.
Oh, no. He's got someplace he's got.
Okay. I know D&D the best, and when I went to work there, I did a lot of that balancing work. I'm going to sit for a second. In a role playing game, if you have player character classes, and I'll use D&D early days as an example. Fighter, magic user, cleric. Okay, well, we had to make sure that we didn't give anything to one class that would enable them to dominate. We wanted it to remain level. In D&D, early stage wizards are like little baby ducklings. They die easily and don't accomplish much. They poop all over everything. That's kind of what early stage wizards were. We did that on purpose. Because if wizards in the rules within D&D and that, if wizards were allowed to progress at the same rate as, say, a fighter or even a cleric, they would soon dominate the game. They would overbalance the game. So that's a character class that could skew the whole game. Wizards were the worst, but we had to make sure the fighters didn't all think they were Conan, and we had to make sure the clerics all didn't think they were Prior Tuck. The balance is hopefully everybody faces an equal challenge, and the wizards cannot dominate. A very great deal of the big bad evil guy ethic in designing is always a mad wizard, because they have these amazing spells that are like calling in an artillery strike. And you're sitting there with your sword that does 1 to 8 points of damage. Okay, so with balancing balancing the player types and then balancing what we gave them. The artifacts we created, the encouragements to enchant weapons, enchant armor and stuff like that. And then we limited it. You know, anything above +3 may not mean much to some of you, but anything above +3 had to be like God-given. It was so powerful. And a lot of that crap got ignored right away. People tried to change the game, tried to change spellcasters, and we would ride herd on it and no, you can't do that. And that's what we did the first couple of years, to keep people from subverting the game. And it worked. But by God, it was a hard couple of years. Squashing this idea, squashing that idea. A lot of what I did the first couple of years was writing edit supplements to the original rules. A lot of it was clarifications, and a bunch of it was new stuff. New magic items, new spells, new ideas. And that's a lot of what I did. I did Blackmore, Eldritch Wizardry, Gods, Demigods, and Heroes, Swords and Spells, and then we came out with first edition. So what I was doing in those is I was clarifying points, trying to cover stuff that we blew it. Yeah, we didn't see that one. And honing and refining the game. So that when we came to do first edition AD&D, the Holy Grail, it was a much more cohesive, better thought out, better balance. You can always have unbalance. 5e is rife. 5th edition D&D I don't like because it's so wildly unbalanced. You know, Dragonborn. Oh yeah, right. A half anything used to disgust me. A half orc, that's a product of a rape. I wouldn't have them in my game. I didn't have them in the articles that I published in the various games. I didn't have anything like that, except I wink nudged half elves. Only because Tolkien had Aragorn marrying an elf, you know, and we fought Tolkien. Everybody wanted to turn everything in D&D Tolkien. Only reason we had dwarves in there was Tolkien. No, I love it, man's writing, don't get me wrong. But D&D is not Tolkien revisited. You may find if you develop a successful game of any kind, that people will want to make rules changes. Like land on free parking and get all the fines in the middle of the Monopoly board, that's not a rule. But it's a house rule that a lot of people grow up playing. And there's nothing wrong with that rule. If everybody's happy with the rule, play with it. If one or more people are unhappy with it, examine it and see why. Any game, your game or some other game you buy, it applies the same. We spent the first couple of years fighting off, no, it's not this, no, it's not that. This is the way it works. No, we're not going to change the way it works. This is the way it works. Until we kind of beat out the brush fires, came out with first edition, and they mostly stopped. So we just had people that thought they knew better than we did how to make the game better. And hey, a few of them did. We published a couple of things that came in over the transom. Druids, the whole class of druids. That came from an article I published in Dragon Magazine that came in as an unsolicited manuscript. We said, hey, good stuff, and it became part of the canon. But that's role playing. If you're going to write a role playing game, you got to find a hook. What makes your role playing game different from the other 70 or 80 other role playing games out there? There's a game called Dungeon Crawl Classics. It's very much like old school D&D in that you go in with a stack of character sheets and they die, and they die. And whoever's on the top of the stack when you finally finish the adventure, that's your adventure, and he's ready to go to a level 1 adventure.
I've written for this line, I can confirm every word of that.
And it's just a buttload of fun. And then now there's Mutant Crawl Classics, which is done by a guy here in Cincinnati. And it's relatively the same, and it has the same devil may care attitude. Now, if I can talk about role playing, there's way too many people that become clinically depressed if something happens to their character. In real life, they get clinically depressed if something happened to their character. I've known of 2 marriages that broke up over something that happened in game. I've known 2 engagements that have broken up because something that happened in game. Now, granted, I got 40 years of, one here, one there, whatever, but I know of 4, so there's got to be more. Get over it. It's a game. As a game designer, all you're looking to do is provide the people that buy your game fun. If you're not having fun, you shouldn't be doing it. If you're a role player and you're not having fun, find another group. Games are about fun. They're about leisure time. Never forget that. You're asking people to spend part of their very limited, very valuable leisure time paying attention to what you create. Now, again, that doesn't apply to all the people that play shit on their phones. And it doesn't apply to most of the people that play at home on their PCs or their laptops. Question? Anyone? Did I answer it? The last one? Is the last one answered satisfactory?
What do you think of like modern magic systems and how like every class and any like modern RPGs tends to be like, for example, they have like a magical capability that like fighters, eldritch knights.
See that camera? It's pointing over here. It might not see me. Magic should, in fact, I've had this conversation on my podcast a couple times in the last 3 weeks. Magic should be magic. Magic should be special. Now, I don't have a problem with a world where what I call low magic is prevalent. Everybody's got a magical lamp that, so their house doesn't get dark at night. Low, pots and pans that clean themselves. I don't have a problem with that. But when you're talking about doom weapons, when you're talking about spells that'll wipe out all 80 guys in front of you, it's wildly unbalanced. I would not DM it. I would not DM a 5e game simply because everybody's way too powerful. My hat's off to anybody that does DM 5e. It's a very, very difficult system to keep control, basically keep control of. But that's my personal opinion. There's lots 5e has sold more than all the previous editions. So that tells you right there that it's a popular game. The editions that I was worked on didn't sell nearly the numbers that 5e has. They're new players. That's what they want to play. I had a guy in one of my recent games. Before the game, we were sitting, waiting for the room to clear or whatever. And he asked me, he says, "True that in first edition, if you fail your poison saving throw, you really die?" And I go, "Yeah." "And if you make your saving throw, you still get half damage for the debilitating effect of the toxins on your body." And he was just gobsmacked. He was trying to wrap his head around actually dying. Luke Gygax, son of Gary, runs Gary Con every year in March. Oh, I knew Luke when he literally was about this big. He came in to wherever the hell we were last time, grousing about how damn hard it was to kill anybody in 5e. Because they all got like 3 saving throws, 3 different kinds of saving throws to see if they were really dead. And of course, they never were really dead. Well, I don't know. In my book, in my world, dead is dead. You're no longer breathing. You either get a cleric to revive you or get a shovel and bury you. Either way, there's no way around it. First edition was much more simple and cut and dried like that. First edition published a notorious collection of fiction books called Appendix N. It was all the books that Gary and I read when we were inventing this shit. So the people could go find it and go, oh, that's where this came from. Oh, that's how the magic system came about. It was the stuff that influenced us. The Paladin came from Three Hearts and Three Lions, Paul Anderson's book. That is the ideal paladin, not a religious fanatic with a stick up his butt who wants to kill everybody that doesn't see him, things his way, which he has become in role playing. So things can happen. We thought, oh, paladin, that'd be a neat idea. No, no, but not everybody plays that way. It's been my experience at game conventions not to give out a paladin pre-generated character. Because they just assume it's their badge and mantle and they can be nasty to everybody else. I've had to tell a paladin, no, it was not cool to pluck the eyeballs out of baby orcs and make them talk. So not everybody adheres to those paladin ideals. Any other question? Come on. Go ahead, I'll
You
grab the
raised your
answer
hand,
for
I
it.
see you.
I'll take multiples.
So with editing those books, from my knowledge, or when me first edited those books, my knowledge is from like notes from Gygax and Arneson, right?
Yeah, mainly. The game was the game concept was developed by Dave Arneson that came out of something called the Bronstein campaign up in Minneapolis. And every so often, once a year, twice a year, they got together and they all assumed roles of the major people, the mayor, the town constable, etc. And they played those roles and also played miniatures. They also had miniatures involved. And when two of the people in the Bronstein campaign couldn't agree, they went to war. And then they fought it out in miniatures. Gary heard about it and said, ooh, there's a game there. Took the idea home, and a few months later, out of his forehead popped D&D. And the argument has not ceased over who wrote what since. I had the misfortune to work on Arneson's stuff. And yeah, Gary was a much better writer and a much better game designer. But Gary was also a fair guy and he gave him half credit. That answer what you were, if not, restate.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get lost in my own wonder.
The actual process of it.
Well, number one, Arneson was not happy with it from the beginning. And yet he was getting half the royalties. And he wanted to do this and he wanted to do that. And Gary had already done the Greyhawk supplement, which changed the combat and stuff like that. And Dave wanted to do one. So Gary said, do one. Well, when I got hired in September of '75, in October, I was handed a peach basket. You know, little wooden slats, peach basket about this tall, full of bits of paper, notes. Hi, Tim, here's your first job. This is the Blackmore supplement. Oh, it is, huh? Okay. And so I had to make sense of all these disjointed notes and ideas and, oh yeah, he wrote that in the same ink. Maybe that was on the same day. And some of his ideas were in there, certainly. He didn't like it either. He was unhappy with it because to flesh it out, I'd added the race of the Sahagin. That fleshed out the Blackmore because I didn't have enough pages. And it was groggy, amphibian. Yeah, okay. He hated that. Just hated that. Sahagin came in over the transom from a man named Steve Marsh. And he was a Mormon missionary at the time. And he wrote him and sent him to Gary. So things come in over the transom. But he was never happy. Groused about it until the day he died. He was never happy. Never good enough for him. the sad thing is. Dave couldn't write himself out of a wet paper sack. He had a couple of products published that were not edited. They proved my point. There's something out there called the First Family Campaign. It is atrocious. The ideas are sound. Once you wade through them, the crap to get there. So no, Dave was never happy. A year ago, I went to a Dave Con in Minneapolis, kind of try to heal the breach. And before I got there, the Minneapolis group had schismed. Some of them went to Dave Con and some of them thought it was horrible. Gamers are like that. You know, gamers are like that. Can't get them. Now, I hope every gamer alive is going to go see the D&D movie just to see what all the hype is about. And maybe it'll be good, maybe it won't. I'm going. You can bet I'm going. I just want to see what they did with it, because everything they tried to do in a movie with D&D before sucked. But now they got a budget and they got stars and they got CG and let's go, boys. Yeah, so they violate a couple of rules. Can't jump in and out of a gelatinous cube. Once you jump in, it starts digesting. But hey, you know, it's a movie. So I'm hoping it's great. I'm hoping, let me share a moment with you. I believe it was the second. What came out first, The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings movies?
Lord of the Rings.
Second Lord of the Rings movie. I was sitting there, and I think that's the one with the Oliphants and that enormous battle scene. And it came over me. I helped cause this to happen. Because without D&D, where would the rest of it be? You know, it wasn't like we set out to change the world. But what we did, it's why we have fantasy on TV today. It's why we had True Blood, a half a dozen Netflix and at any given time, horror, fantasy. Stranger Things is not about D&D, but oh Lord, did it shoot the sales up because it made people interested. There's the other thing you want to do. Get a product placement. Good luck with that, but try. Because that's all it takes. Just seeing something on the table. E.T. was it E.T. they were playing? Yeah. E.T. wanted to use D&D as the game they were playing. Stranger Things wanted to use, no, E.T. wanted to use D&D that they're playing there in the kitchen, I think, at the beginning. No, Brian Bloom wanted money. I wasn't there at the time in the company. He didn't understand that product placement is invaluable. If they had them playing D&D at that table, game would have shot off just like it did when Stranger Things came out. Product placement, that's the way. Anyway, I'm sitting there in that second movie. Oh, that's great. God, elephants are dying. I'm like, yes. And it's similar to the day we went and saw Star Wars. Somehow or other, I don't know if it was mom connected or rich guys, but in Lake Geneva, we always had first run movies within a day or two of them opening in Chicago. We're tiny, but we got them. So one day, a beautiful sunny day, much like today, Brian and Gary and I decided we were going to walk down the street about 3 blocks and go see this Star Wars movie that everybody in Chicago had lost their shit over. And we walked down and we watched. And we came out silently. And the first utterance was Brian going, man, this is going to do Traveler. It's the name of the game that was out there. This is going to do Traveler a huge boost. And it did. That's part of the reason that PSR tried to go down the sci-fi lane with bad results. But
Star Frontiers.
yeah.
I believe we had a question over here, Tim.
Yes.
I was just gonna say, going back to the Dungeons and Dragons movie.
Yeah.
I saw a post that said it would be hilarious if they had one of the actors die, like their character.
Oh, yeah.
The same person, but a different character.
Yeah, he'd be Bob's brother.
Yeah,
Or a junior.
right.
In fact, there was a Facebook post the other day about a guy who had gotten, he was going back to playing old school and enjoying it. And sure enough, this guy got killed. So he took the character sheet, wrote Junior after it, handed it to the DM. Oh, let's go. And he kept going. We used to do that all the time. You walk around the corner, hey. The other around it, and suddenly the group's back to 6. You know, it was never you again, unless that was part of the story. It would creep them out, then we use it. But yeah, that was very common. That's why I love Dungeon Crawl Classics. You don't grow attached to the characters. Nowadays, 5e is a different animal. Nowadays, in the previous editions, people invest so much time and so much of their psyche into a character that dies. And they go in, not making this up, clinical depression. Not everyone, but there are cases I'm aware of where the person went into clinical depression because their imaginary hero died. So you don't want to have your people invest that heavily in your game. But because suicide years later. I don't think anybody ever suicided, but I do know of several cases of depression, giving up the game. And like I said, I've known of broken marriages and broken engagements over the years.
So I've got a question for you, Tim.
All right.
Since you got to be the editor back in the early days,
Mhm.
I'd love your perspective on this. What was the most consistently annoying thing that you encountered with the submissions you had to edit?
Trying to change the rules. I was incredibly fortunate at the magazine because there was no market for budding fantasy game writers. There was nobody publishing it. There were 2 magazines out that dealt with gaming. The General, which was a house organ for the Avalon Hill board game company. And it was good in its own right. And then there was Moves, which was the house organ for S&T. Strategy and Tactics, which was SPI. Don't ask me what they were stood for. And they were strictly based on their games, and they would focus on 1 or 2 of their games each issue. And I said, no, I want to do a game that does a lot more. So I took over an existing newsletter that had a 500 or 600, maybe 500 readers. And I started pimping what's coming. Yay, the Dragon's coming. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And I just teased it for a couple, 3 issues. And then boom, we came out in July 1976 for the centennial with Dragon #1. Now, I had no exaggeration. I had a pile of manuscripts this high. Over the transom, it was called back then. Unsolicited work. Art, articles, tons of them. So my job was to find the ones that are ready now, minimal work, find the ones that just needed a little work, buff them up. And then the other ones that really needed either rejected or rewritten. So I had 3 piles, literally I had 3 piles of my books. And I had a pile of art. And if I needed a picture of a soldier in armor, oh, here's a hoplite. So I used the hoplite picture because he was in armor. It may not have been a great article, but he was a guy in armor. It was usually a fancy article. The hardest part was finding the gems. Like I said, we had the druid came in, the ranger came in over the transom. Those are 2 character classes that are still strong today. Finding those gems in amongst all the droves was the hardest thing I did. I had to read every one, and some were awful. Some of them want to make you go wash your eyes with bleach. They were so bad. We were fighting sexism back then in the mid-70s. The East Coast people became fascinated with girdles of sex change. Okay, we had one in the book, one of the books, but it was supposed to be something horrible, right? Well, pretty soon there's as prolific as belts, and the East Coast, that wasn't enough. They wanted to change your sex and your inclination. And we're just, oh, no, No, we spent a lot of time damping down that stuff. You wanna play up there, fine, but no, we're not going in and making a guy a girl that likes girls. No, we're not going there. There were many eruptions of those weird ideas in the fanzines. Fanzines were for people who wanted to see their name in print. They would write up something and they send 27 or 30 or however many copies of subscribers to the collator, who would then his and hers and his and hers and put them together, staple them and mail them out. They were vicious beds of intrigue. And they fed on themselves with weird ideas. And we had to monitor. That was my job. I had to read all the fanzines. And from the fanzines, we found out trends that we didn't like. And it might sound arrogant, and it was a little arrogant, but we felt we knew how the game ought to be played. And then if you played it our way, you will enjoy it. If you try to do some of these other weird things, pretty soon it's a wizard's ballet. Or you're living in the papacy. Or you're in total barbarism because you're all fighters. You know, we did do some of that. We did. We felt that we were doing the game a service. We felt that strongly about the mechanism that we had created. I mean, the only people that were doing role playing before we brought it to the public were shrinks patients. Psychiatrists used role playing before we did. And I don't know if that's where Gary got it from. I couldn't tell you because I wasn't there then. But we weren't certainly shrink patients. We were, most of us declared nuts. So there's a lot of good stuff. There was a period of time about 15 years ago that every military history expert on the History Channel, my wife and I would be watching the program. Yeah, I published him. Yeah, I published him. Yeah, I published him. Yeah, I published his first article that was, published. I knew most of the talking heads on the History Channel because they'd all written articles for me when they were in senior in high school and in college, whatever, and I published them. And they went on from there to other things. The sheer weight of submissions was unbelievable. And we finally came down to, if you didn't send a self-addressed stamped envelope, that was the standard back then, you didn't get your manuscript back. Though I did make up a postcard that had a bunch of check boxes. Sorry, I didn't meet our needs, whatever. And I did always respond to every person that submitted anything, even if it was trying to be gentle letdown. You got to treat your people nice. If you decide, if you do get a dedicated band of play testers who are good at play testing, feed them, nurture them, treat them like a bed of rare roses. I had a group over in North College Hill many years ago that were great. They tried everything they could to try and find holes in the adventures I was writing. I was writing what we call modules. They were great. They went down every rabbit hole. They went around every corner. Now, if they were a group and I was the DM, that would have frustrated the heck out of me. But as play testers, that's what I wanted them to do. Try everything. Test everything except nothing unless it says you specifically cannot do this. Try it. That's what testers do. They find your oversights. And if you don't use testers and you don't find oversights, your product will stink. More than likely. Hard Game, Naval War, published by Avalon Hill. My old group, I used to be friends before they all started dying off with all the guys from Ralph Partha, figure manufacturing company here in Cincinnati that's since morphed into Iron Wind. And we would play frequently. We bent rules. We changed rules. We house ruled a lot. But you don't wanna know about house rules. You wanna make a game that they don't need the house rule, unless it's just something that makes them feel good. Designing a game, whether it's a digital platform or a dining room table. Test it. If you're writing code, you people, you code writers have a whole lot harder job than those of us that are just making physical board games. Or just writing rules. You have a much harder job because you gotta write it so as not to be hacked, not to be altered with. You want to write rules so good they don't need to be hacked. And somebody always will. It's human nature. Question? Yes.
So when it comes to like the RPGs and writing, say like a module, specifically, you mentioned how replayability is really important.
Well, modules are the exception. I was speaking about board games at the time.
Yeah.
Modules are generally a one shot, obviously. The best module though takes 6 or 8 nights to finish. Then you have value. If it's something you sit down and in 5 hours you're done, that you're gonna feel cheated, especially if you just shelled out $28 for it or whatever. You're gonna feel cheated. Modules have to have enough play hours of to warrant their cost. They have to, because that's all it is. It's the adventure of, you're going to here and acquire that, and in the meantime, rescue her or him or it, whatever. Those are one shots. However, if it's good enough, I know people that still play Tomb of Horrors. And that's the scariest damn module that's ever been written. And probably has an 80% kill rate. And they still go back and play, even if they made it through 10 years ago. Are we running out of time?
Oh, no. I was just gonna chime in on the side. Remember what he said about going through a sheet of player characters?
Oh, yeah.
I've gone through Tomb of Horrors and beat most of my friends. It only took me 16 characters to get through it.
But it's so much fun, you do it.
Yeah.
You have to make a game that is winnable. And if it's enough fun along the way, they'll play. The fun is just overlooked. I saw a Facebook post the other day about what's the most important unwritten rule of tabletop role-playing gaming. It was 19 responses before somebody mentioned fun. People ask me, oh, how do I know if I'm a good DM? Do your players come back? Yes, you're a good DM. Are you having fun in your campaign? Then continue. If you're not having fun, find another one. It's like TV. That program sucks. Flip the channel. There's always more on the next channel. It's always there. You want to make a game that they don't want to flip the channel on. Or if they finish it, like you'd say a digital handheld type thing, if they finish it, 6 months later, they want to try and do it faster this time or better this time. And self-competitiveness is a big factor you should look at. Because we all like to do a little better than we did the last time. Again, human nature. You got a B in that last paper. Well, you want an A next time. Sure. We always want to do better. Got an A, get an A plus. Won it in 18 turns, try to win it in 16. We are competitive by nature. That's why back in the day when we weren't too civilized, we'd pick up a stone and bash the other guy in the head with it. And he'd pick up a stick, if we didn't knock him down, and bash us with it. We're competitive. That's part of human nature. We are very, very competitive. Play on that. Make your game competitive. Me and my bunch of guys, we play to screw each other. Because that's how we have fun. We all been playing games for 40 years. And we still playing to win, but you like to screw Garvey. Yeah, oh, sorry, Garvey. I will. It's nature. We have to be told not to knock the guy down running in the next lane. 3 and 4-year-olds, you try to get them to run a race, they spend half the time knocking each other over. Can't do that. Gotta run from here to there. All right, what time is it?
That's what I'm just checking. We got about 15 minutes.
Oh, well. Yes,
Do you have a favorite module? For earlier edition?
yeah, I like the giant series, G1,
Yeah.
G2, G3. It's doable, it's tough, but it's doable. I like it because it was, actually, that was our very first, and we published that as a tournament. We used to go up to Detroit. They used to have big conventions, around 2,000 people. And we'd go up there. And so we decided that we were going to write this module. Everybody played in G1. And then we did some eliminating. Then the remainers went to G2, and we put G1 on sale out in the trade hall. Needless to say, we sold them all that we brought with us. All, we sold an entire print run. I think about 6,000 copies each. And we sold them all, which, you know, for us back then, that was a good spot of money. The anticipation that built, and then of course, as soon as the third round started, we put them on sale. So everybody that played in the first and second were buying the ones they didn't have yet. So it was a crass commercial marketing ploy, but it was also a great buzz for advertising. And we also made a ton of money back in the day from those conventions, because we got the admission fee. You used to have to pay so much per game. There wasn't a tag price, but there was an event price. So if we got 900 people that were signing up at $4 a pop, in 1979 dollars, yeah, that was a moneymaker. And it's my favorite because it was the first. My second favorite is Village of Hamlet, because I'm the Druid of the Grove. I'm Giroux Estep. That was my character. And so, yeah, I have a fondness for that. And during the playtest, and that was playtested over a long period of time, because we couldn't find the time to get enough people together to do it. Every time I didn't show up, they made new verses to Tim the Lusty Druid. And apparently, apparently my Druid character had relations with just about every living organism in the woods. So, you know, that was a good incentive not to miss a session. But I love that one because it was the first time we'd done a village interaction, social type of module. Those are probably my favorites. And then the rest of them would be ones I've read. I've got one coming out at Gary Con. I kickstarted it just before the pandemic. And so we skidded to a halt. Curse of the Weaver Queen is coming out at Gary Con. I sold it to Old Guard Games that I'm part of. And that one's coming. That's my first commercial with them quite a few years. Yeah, that's my first commercial. I've got 8, I think, written that I've never tried to publish. A couple of them are really, really good. I'm not saying that. People who played it on them said these are really, really good. But I don't feel like kickstarting. I'm 74 years old. I don't need all that hassle. If I find somebody who wants to split the Kickstarter with me, I'm in. But you get to do the work, and I get to do the commentary in all the updates. But I don't want to do the rest of that stuff. That's why I quit going to cons. I didn't like flying anymore. Too much of a hassle. So I go up 2 cons in Wisconsin every year, one in the spring, one in the fall, and I'm happy. They comp me for everything. So yeah, I'm good with that. You want a game that's going to last, but you also want to try to invent a game that's going to be picked up again several years down the road. A new couple, new family, they buy a game, they play it, put it away. 6 years later, they have another 1 or 2 kids. Is that the one they're going to dig back out to play with the new kids, or are they going to? This other one's caught their eye. Don't be exploding kittens. once or twice, and it's like, what the hell did I spend that money on? There's no. It's play the game, as written, blow up the kittens, and feel bad. That's it. There's no way to house rule it or anything. So I guarantee you, it's sitting in a drawer, on a shelf, in a bookcase, just sitting. You don't want your game to be like that. And with Kickstarter and Facebook, you don't have to have your game like that. You can make your game well-known, especially if you get some savvy playtesters who also go on and say stuff like, oh man, I played this. We played such and such last night and had a great time. And then their however many friends they have will see it and multiply that by 6 that you have playing in the game. So you got 6 times that many Facebook friends that'll see it. And that's how you build interest in advance. You might have somebody send you a question. Oh, hell, I overlooked that. And you don't have to thank them for it, except in your mind. Ooh, thanks for that. You write that thing. I don't want to discourage a budding game designer, game writer, but I want you to know just how tough it is. You are not the only class of game design. My friend Jay out in Maine teaches too. I've done Zoom talks with his classes. There's a class at Bradley University that I've talked to via Zoom a couple of times. You're not the only class on game design. I hope he knows a hell of a lot about games and what works and what doesn't. Okay, he's not some stuffy-headed prof. I consider Mr. Williams a gamer, though that's not what I call him.
Thank you, sir.
He's a gamer. And gamers are a special breed. It's easy to join, play games, have opinions about games. You're a gamer. Easy peasy. Know your market. How about looking at a game that's fun? Right now I'm tutoring my 7-year-old great granddaughter as she's a COVID victim of the educational collapse. She's way behind her reading skills. So I'm tutoring her 2 days a week. And I'm constantly coming up with competitions that she will stay focused on. We're working on blends and sounding out words right now. And so I came up with, all right, tell me what that is. What's it sound like? Flip over, there's always 8 words on the back. If you can tell me 4 of those words, you get a point. Give me 6 of them, you get 2. And she's competitive and she's doing it. Last night was a great night. She ended up with 10 points. So Grandpa had to get into his bag and he see how to catch the points in like she was at the arcade. Find it if you want to find an educational game. If you think you want to do an educational game, the best playtester you can find is somebody that teaches that grade or in that grade range. In that grade range. You're not going to redo Candyland, forget it. It's been done. I mean, people have tried. Chutes and Ladders is about as close as anybody came. It's been done. I'm not saying every great game that has been done, but it gets harder and harder for us every year. Come up with a new idea. Or, can't do that, make an old idea better. Come up with an alternate set of rules. To a game that exists. You can start a supplement. Something that's overlooked in a game that you play. Hey, here's a whole thing you can add into this game. You can start that. Lots of avenues out there, but most of them turn into dead ends. I'd be a liar if I told you any different. All right, I'm one of the original writers of Dungeons and Dragons. I did not come here in my Mercedes. I did not come here by Uber. I drove my 3-year-old Hyundai and parked it in the garage. The best I ever made, ever. And that would be in 8, 9 years ago dollars. I sat down and figured it. I made 17.8. Well, as a vice president of a division that was doing $1 million worth of business a year. Now that was great money back then. That wasn't the money, but it equated out. I was making about 17.8. And you know, we were comfortable, but we were rolling until, I still driving a company car whenever I could, you know. And we had a wildly successful company at the time. We were wildly successful. We were selling games literally as fast as we can get them in the door and ship them out. And what I made was warranted by what we made as a company. And what my division did as a division within the company. But nobody got rich, and those of us who did make a chunk generally blew it up their nose, well, snorted it up their nose during the late 70s, early 80s, or other stupid, ill-advised ideas, and they're broke now too, or dead of their ill-spent lives. Not I'll tell you, I'm no saint. I used to be the head of the Young Turks in the game business. All the old guys went to the hospitality suites in their white patent leather shoes and white patent leather belts, and drank until they puked on each other's shoes. And I was the one that, what hotel room you had? Okay, and I tell them, and we'd wet down the towels and seal the door, and we'd smoke out. So I led that wave of the second generation in gaming, and we Young Turks had a lot of ideas that have since been implemented and have since come to life and come about. Avalon Hill's a shadow of itself. SPI went bankrupt. TSR owned it at the time, so TSR repossessed it. It wasn't much there to repossess. Chaosium is still publishing. Flying Buffalo is still publishing. God, I can't think of any others from back that far back. They're all gone. They all went belly up. Yeah, tough business, no prisoners. But hey, it's a buttload of fun. And that's the word that you should have visually tattooed on the inside of your eyelids. Fun. If you lose sight of fun, your game is gonna probably stink to most people. Now, if it's real complicated than that, it's the accountant's dream, fine. How many accountants can you sell it to? Okay, that's your metric. Okay, if it's all about checks and balances and crap like that, fine. How many accountants are likely to buy it? Not that many. Bean counters don't think they have any free time. Right? You gotta know your market. What is your target? If you know your target and you keep sight of that target, you might have a chance. But I won't tell you have anything but a chance. The guy with Uno, he saw a game, he changed its physical components, and he patented or copyrighted or whatever, and made a gazillion bucks. He is the exception. He is the exception.